Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Adam here with Retro Repairs, and I got another repair video for you today. So what I have here is an original Nintendo NES console, and I got a little problem with it. So I stumbled across this working through, I have a little pile of NES consoles right there in the corner that basically just checking to see what's wrong with them. They're all spare parts ones. Most of them don't really work. This one mostly works with just this one problem. So let me show you. So we get here to the screen, and if I hit A, it goes right into Duck Hunt, which obviously is not correct. Same thing every time I try this, and none of the other buttons work. So we're going to try and see what the problem here is. Okay, so first thing to do, we have to disassemble this. Anytime you look online for a solution to a problem, you always get kind of the stupid answers. Oh, did you try blowing on it? Did you try cleaning the pins? And this goes well beyond that. So the pins are fine. The reader here is fine. The issue is not the cartridge or the reader or anything. It's something to do with this main board. So we're going to try and figure out what that is. So I already did kind of a brief inspection on this, and I did find one problem here. I'm going to try and zoom in to show you. So if you look right here along these traces, I can actually see some corrosion here. So on these pins, these two pins, and then along these traces. So what I do want to do is test them to see if there is continuity issues. So let's grab my multimeter and do exactly that. So follow along, let's see where these pins go. So you hear that beep, we are getting continuity there. Let's try and figure out this one here. So this actually doesn't appear to go anywhere on this side. May have to check the flip side, but for now, let's test this trace, which is right under here. So that connects, it looks like, right there. And it's supposed to go right to here, but I'm not getting anything. Let's try see if I can dig into this a bit. Okay, so we're getting it there, but nothing there. Let's try the other way. So we're getting it there. So there's quite clearly a break here, and I'm going to show you how to try and fix that. So first thing to do is going to be to clean this whole area right here. Just give it a good scrub with a toothbrush, which has some rubbing alcohol on it. There we go. I'm actually going to do just anywhere that I see any flux residue or anything else. There's a little spot right there, which looks like it has something dried on, so I'm going to get that all up. Just kind of give the board a good once over. And there we go. So this is the spot that we're going to be working on. So first thing I'm going to do is actually go grab a knife. So what I'm going to want to do right here is actually try and scrape back some of this solder mask to expose the copper underneath here. This will help identify where the break is, as well as give us something good to solder to. So what I'm going to do here is try and run a very small piece of wire basically along this trace and then solder it into place. So for that, what I'm using is this stranded wire. It's got some very fine strands to it. It looks like there's about 8 of them or so in here. So I'm going to cut off, I think, 2 of them, try and twist them together, and use that to replace the trace and see if that can work for me. So I'm just going to start by twisting them a little bit. Then what you can do, is grab your soldering iron and adding a little bit of solder onto the tip of it. Basically going to run that solder. Sorry, I have my camera plugged in here. This battery's pretty dead, so I keep knocking it a little bit. Run that solder along the length of it, and what that's going to do is basically coat this a little bit with some solder. Makes it easier to solder into place, but also holds it together after I've twisted it. Okay. And then just simply cut it off and put it over to the side. So put that right there. Next, clean off that solder tip or soldering iron tip really well. And then we're going to run a little bit of solder along that trace. So load up the tip a bit with some iron or with some solder. First I want to flux this, so I like to use a flux pen. It's just a lot easier. This helps prepare the trace for soldering, cleans it nicely, gets rid of any leftover oxidization there. Then we will just run the soldering iron along that trace, and it should leave a nice little trail of solder. Perfect. So, last step is try and get this in place nicely. And then I should be able to just kind of touch that into place and pin it there. Get a bit more solder on me. Got a bit much. All right, so that should do the trick. I think we're going to just kind of knock it a little bit with the tweezers. Seems to be holding, then cut off any additional strands. Because we don't want this little tail bit here to be touching anything it shouldn't. There we go. And then we will now test continuity on that. So I believe we went from over here to, is it one of these pins? Right there. So now we have full continuity. Again, I just want to check that one that we were having, I was concerned about at first. That's still there. Cool. So I want to plug it in, see if that repair made any difference. And then we're going to do some finishing up on this. All right, so I've got it plugged in here, and let's give it a try, see what happens. So we've got Super Mario Brothers, and now seems to be responding to proper buttons. So push A. So far so good. What I do want to do is try this with 2 players just to make sure that both controller ports are working. So I've got it turned on, plugged in, got 2 controllers here, and let's see, so 2-player game. I'm just gonna kind of die right off the bat here. And now let's try controller 2. Seems to be good. So far so good. So let's turn that off. We're gonna go back, clean up a little bit of what's left in there, and then wrap this repair up. Okay, so the repair is basically done. I do have to clean this up a little bit just to make sure that, to try and stop the corrosion from continuing and get rid of some of this leftover flux. So I'm gonna clean the repair site. Some people prefer to cover their trace repairs in epoxy or hot glue. It's really probably not necessary. That's not going to be going anywhere. So I'm going to kind of leave that exposed. However, what I do need to do is take a look at these 2 pins here. So we'll put some additional flux on there. These are those 2 pins that were, let's see if we're in as far as we can go. There we go. These were those 2 pins right there that were kind of showing a little bit of corrosion. So I just want to reflow those, make sure that the solder on those is clean and not going to be prone to continuing corrosion. So add some new solder to that, and really all I'm going to do is get in there, touch each of these pins for a second or 2. I'm just going to do them all while I'm in there. Add a little bit more. And that should be good, I think. So we'll clean that up. Again, some simple rubbing alcohol will do the trick. And then I like to take a look across the board for any other spots where you see some leftover flux. I mean, it's been there for 30 years, so probably nothing's going to happen, but it's a good idea just to try and get it off that board. But otherwise, this repair seems to be pretty much done. So we're going to put it back in the case, give it one final test, and otherwise we've got ourselves a working NES system. Alright, so I've got everything put together with the exception of the lid. I put that lid on once I've tested it, everything kind of screwed together, and then I know that it works without having to take the lid off and tune up anything. So let's give it a try. There we have Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. I should be able to switch games. Yep. Enter. Let's do 2 players. And just make sure everything seems to work. So far so good, seems to be responding properly. So, all that's really left is throw the lid on top of this, screw the 6 screws in the bottom, and then we're done. So that's actually going to be it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Every one of these comments, likes, and subscriptions really does help my videos out by getting more views. So really appreciate watching. Thanks a lot and have a good one. We'll see you next time.